It started with a request so unexpected that longtime Clarence House staff reportedly froze in silence before carrying it out. According to whispers emerging from royal corridors, Queen Camilla allegedly instructed aides to remove Queen Elizabeth II's portrait from a prominent position inside Clarence House Hall, a move insiders claim immediately triggered alarm among senior royal traditionalists. What initially appeared to be a simple interior adjustment quickly spiraled into something far more explosive, raising painful questions about legacy, symbolism, and who truly controls the emotional heart of the monarchy now. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. What made the alleged request so emotionally charged was not simply the portrait itself, but what that image had reportedly come to represent over decades inside Clarence House. According to palace insiders, Queen Elizabeth's portrait was viewed by many longtime aides as more than ceremonial decoration. It allegedly symbolized continuity, stability, and the lingering presence of a monarch whose authority still dominates the emotional identity of the royal institution even after her passing. For years, staff members reportedly walked beneath that portrait during some of the monarchy's most uncertain moments, from periods of family crisis to private royal discussions that shaped the future of the crown itself. And because of that history, insiders claim certain aides reacted with visible hesitation when the alleged instruction was first delivered. Reports suggest some staff members quietly questioned whether the request was truly meant to happen at all. Others allegedly feared the symbolic consequences of removing an image many within the palace considered almost untouchable inside royal tradition. According to royal commentators, the emotional tensions surrounding the alleged decision quickly spread beyond Clarence House itself, triggering uncomfortable discussions about Camilla's growing influence within the monarchy during King Charles's reign. For critics inside royal circles, the controversy allegedly reinforced fears that too much institutional change was unfolding too quickly during an already fragile chapter for the crown. For Camilla's defenders, however, observers claim the situation may have reflected nothing more than ordinary household modernization, unfairly transformed into palace intrigue by anxious insiders and emotional symbolism. But inside the monarchy, symbolism has never been ordinary. Every portrait, every room, every carefully preserved object carries emotional weight tied directly to royal memory and institutional legitimacy. That reality reportedly intensified the atmosphere almost immediately, once whispers of the alleged request began circulating among palace staff and senior aides. Sources suggest concerns quietly reached King Charles after anxiety surrounding the situation spread through royal administrative circles. According to insiders familiar with the mood inside Clarence House, the king allegedly found himself once again caught between competing emotional loyalties: his devotion to Camilla on one side and the towering legacy of Queen Elizabeth II on the other. That balance has reportedly haunted much of Charles's reign from the very beginning, because despite officially becoming queen, Camilla's position inside the monarchy has allegedly continued generating quiet discomfort among certain traditionalists who remain fiercely protective of Queen Elizabeth's memory and symbolic authority. Royal observers now believe the reaction inside Clarence House exposed far deeper anxieties than anyone initially realized. Beneath the alleged disagreement over a portrait stood an institution struggling with transition, identity, and emotional continuity after the end of the Elizabethan era. Some insiders reportedly viewed the situation as a warning sign that unresolved tensions surrounding legacy, loyalty, and public perception were still quietly shaping life behind palace walls. Others feared it revealed how fragile the monarchy's internal unity had become during a period already marked by illness, public scrutiny, and relentless institutional pressure. Because within the House of Windsor, even silence can carry the weight of conflict. And when a portrait tied so closely to Queen Elizabeth allegedly becomes the center of private royal unease, the emotional consequences reach far beyond a hallway inside Clarence House. But as outrage quietly spread behind palace walls, insiders began asking an even more unsettling question: why did Camilla allegedly want the portrait removed in the first place? To outsiders, it may have looked like nothing more than a routine redesign inside a royal residence. But according to royal historians and palace insiders, the portrait in question represented something far more sacred within the emotional architecture of Clarence House. For decades, Queen Elizabeth II's presence reportedly anchored the household with quiet authority. Removing that image, even temporarily, allegedly struck some staff members as crossing an invisible line no one had dared approach before. What made the situation so emotionally explosive was the deep symbolic role royal portraits have historically carried within the monarchy itself. According to royal experts, images displayed inside residences like Clarence House are rarely chosen casually. They are carefully preserved symbols of continuity, hierarchy, memory, and institutional identity. Every frame, every placement, every visible figure within those halls reportedly reflects generations of unwritten royal understanding. And in the case of Queen Elizabeth II, insiders claim her portrait represented far more than remembrance. It allegedly embodied stability during one of the most turbulent transitional periods the monarchy had faced in modern history. Sources suggest the portrait had quietly overlooked countless private family discussions, sensitive meetings, and deeply emotional royal moments for years. Staff members reportedly passed beneath it during times of national mourning, internal crisis, and difficult conversations that shaped the future of the crown itself. According to palace commentators, many longtime aides came to view the image almost as part of the emotional structure of Clarence House, rather than simple decoration hanging on a wall. That connection allegedly explains why the reported request triggered such an unusually emotional reaction among some members of staff. Insiders claim several longtime employees appeared visibly unsettled after hearing whispers that the portrait might be removed or relocated. Not because of rebellion against Camilla personally, but because many allegedly interpreted the decision through the lens of royal symbolism rather than interior design. According to commentators familiar with palace culture, older aides especially viewed Queen Elizabeth's portrait as tied directly to continuity and institutional reassurance. During moments of uncertainty, the late Queen's image reportedly functioned as a silent reminder of discipline, restraint, and endurance, the qualities many insiders believe held the monarchy together through decades of scandal, crisis, and personal heartbreak. Reports suggest quiet comparisons were soon being made behind palace walls to how Queen Elizabeth herself handled royal tradition during periods of enormous instability. Royal observers allegedly recalled how carefully the late monarch preserved ceremonial continuity after devastating family divisions, public criticism, and constitutional pressure throughout her reign. To many traditionalists, the symbolism mattered deeply, and according to insiders, some quietly feared that altering the placement of such an emotionally significant portrait during Charles's already fragile reign could unintentionally send the wrong message both inside and outside the institution. That fear reportedly intensified once speculation began spreading that the move could be interpreted not merely as redecorating, but as symbolic displacement. Certain palace figures allegedly worried critics might frame the situation as an attempt to diminish Queen Elizabeth's lingering emotional authority within Clarence House itself. Others reportedly feared it would reinforce existing discomfort among traditional royal circles, still struggling to fully accept Camilla's evolving role inside the monarchy. Because despite officially becoming queen, Camilla's position has allegedly remained emotionally complicated for certain parts of the institution, especially among those who continue viewing Queen Elizabeth as the irreplaceable emotional centre of modern royal history. The result, according to royal insiders, was an atmosphere thick with tension, caution, and unspoken discomfort. Staff conversations allegedly became more guarded. Reactions reportedly became harder to read. And behind the polished calm expected from royal households, the emotional consequences of the alleged request continued spreading quietly through Clarence House in ways outsiders were never meant to fully witness. Because inside the monarchy, symbols often carry more power than statements ever could. And while palace officials remained publicly silent, private conversations surrounding Camilla's growing authority reportedly became impossible to contain. As whispers intensified, Clarence House reportedly became divided between those defending Camilla's authority and those quietly alarmed by what the alleged decisions seemed to represent. According to insiders familiar with the household atmosphere, tensions began surfacing in subtle but unmistakable ways. Staff conversations reportedly became cautious. Longtime aides allegedly exchanged worried glances in corridors, once defined by strict emotional restraint. Something deeper than decor had been touched. What unsettled many inside Clarence House, according to royal observers, was the growing feeling that the alleged portrait incident was not being viewed as an isolated decision anymore. Reports claim some aides quietly interpreted the request as part of broader internal changes, gradually reshaping the emotional identity of Charles's reign. Over time, certain ceremonial habits had reportedly evolved. Household priorities allegedly shifted. New advisors reportedly gained influence, while older institutional figures became increasingly uneasy about the pace of transformation unfolding behind palace walls. And within that atmosphere, even seemingly small symbolic decisions began carrying enormous emotional weight. Insiders suggest traditionalist palace figures became especially uncomfortable as discussions surrounding Camilla's influence intensified after the alleged request. According to commentators familiar with royal culture, many longtime aides remained deeply protective of Queen Elizabeth's legacy, viewing her leadership as the stabilizing force that carried the monarchy through some of its darkest public crises. To those individuals, the late Queen represented continuity, discipline, and emotional endurance. Any perceived disruption tied to her symbolic presence reportedly triggered anxieties extending far beyond household presentation. Sources allege certain staff members privately questioned whether royal history itself was slowly being reframed inside Clarence House. That phrase reportedly began surfacing in hushed conversations among aides unsettled by what they viewed as an increasingly delicate struggle over symbolism, memory, and institutional authority. According to insiders, the fear was not necessarily about open disrespect toward Queen Elizabeth, but rather the possibility that emotional loyalties within the monarchy were beginning to shift in ways some traditionalists found deeply uncomfortable. Royal commentators claim comparisons to Queen Elizabeth's leadership quietly intensified almost immediately afterward. Observers reportedly recalled how carefully the late monarch protected symbolic continuity during periods of extraordinary pressure, from family breakdowns to public outrage and constitutional uncertainty. Her restraint became legendary within palace culture. And according to insiders, that legacy still shapes how many senior aides judge every decision unfolding under Charles's reign today. For some, the alleged portrait controversy reportedly reinforced fears that the monarchy was entering emotionally unfamiliar territory, without the steadying institutional instincts Queen Elizabeth once provided naturally. Yet not everyone inside Clarence House viewed the situation negatively. Observers believe younger advisors and more modern-minded palace figures allegedly defended the move as practical modernization rather than disrespect. According to certain interpretations, they viewed the emotional backlash surrounding the portrait as evidence of an institution struggling to adapt psychologically after the end of the Elizabethan era. In their eyes, Charles and Camilla reportedly needed space to establish their own identity, without every symbolic adjustment being interpreted as betrayal of the past. But inside the monarchy, competing interpretations rarely remain emotionally neutral for long. What one faction viewed as modernization, another allegedly experienced as erasure, and that emotional divide reportedly created an increasingly tense atmosphere throughout Clarence House itself. At the center of it all stood King Charles, reportedly trapped between conflicting loyalties impossible to fully reconcile. According to insiders, the king allegedly understood the emotional sensitivities surrounding his mother's legacy more deeply than almost anyone else alive. Yet he also remained fiercely protective of Camilla, after years spent defending her place within royal life against relentless criticism and institutional resistance. That balancing act, royal observers claim, increasingly defined the emotional burden of his reign. because every attempt to move the monarchy forward reportedly risked reopening unresolved pain tied to the past. And behind the polished calm still projected publicly, palace insiders whisper that the emotional consequences of the alleged portrait controversy continued spreading quietly through Clarence House long after the initial request itself faded from view. But while tensions quietly spread through Clarence House, another powerful figure inside the monarchy was allegedly watching developments very closely. According to royal insiders, Princess Anne reportedly reacted to the growing controversy with the kind of cold restraint that has long made her one of the monarchy's most feared institutional guardians. She allegedly said little publicly. She reportedly avoided emotional displays entirely. But insiders whisper that behind palace walls, Anne viewed the symbolic handling of Queen Elizabeth's legacy as a matter far too serious to ignore. And once her attention turned toward Clarence House, the atmosphere allegedly shifted almost overnight. What reportedly unsettled palace insiders most was not dramatic confrontation or visible outrage from Anne, but the silence itself. According to those familiar with royal operations, Princess Anne has long operated through quiet influence rather than public emotion. She rarely intervenes openly. She allegedly avoids theatrical reactions altogether. Yet within royal structures, insiders claim her approval or disapproval still carries enormous institutional weight. And after whispers surrounding Queen Elizabeth's portrait began circulating through Clarence House, sources suggest Anne privately expressed growing concern about how the late Queen's symbolic legacy was being handled during Charles's reign. Royal experts believe Anne has always viewed symbolism inside the monarchy as inseparable from institutional stability itself. To her, according to commentators familiar with her perspective, ceremonial traditions are not cosmetic details designed for public spectacle. They are emotional anchors holding together an institution built almost entirely on continuity, memory, and disciplined perception. That philosophy reportedly shaped much of Anne's reaction to the alleged portrait controversy, because within the monarchy, preserving the image of Queen Elizabeth allegedly represents far more than honouring family history. It represents preserving confidence in the crown itself during one of its most uncertain modern chapters. Insiders claim senior traditionalists quietly began rallying around Anne's perspective almost immediately after her concerns reportedly became known inside royal circles. Certain longtime aides allegedly viewed her as the last major institutional figure capable of defending Queen Elizabeth's legacy without emotional compromise or political hesitation. According to palace whispers, Anne's reputation for duty and discipline gave enormous credibility to the unease spreading through Clarence House after the alleged request involving the portrait. And once her silent attention reportedly focused on the matter, insiders claim household tensions deepened significantly. Sources suggest several decisions connected to Clarence House allegedly faced increased scrutiny afterward, especially those involving symbolism, ceremonial presentation, and household messaging. While no formal intervention was ever publicly acknowledged, royal commentators claim Anne's influence inside palace structures has long remained far stronger than most outsiders fully understand. Her authority, according to observers, does not come from publicity or image management. It comes from decades of relentless institutional loyalty and the deep trust Queen Elizabeth reportedly placed in her judgment throughout some of the monarchy's most difficult periods. That legacy allegedly made Anne's quiet concern impossible for senior figures to dismiss casually. Observers now believe her silent involvement intensified pressure surrounding the portrait controversy far beyond what Camilla's household initially expected. Because once Anne reportedly became emotionally invested in protecting Queen Elizabeth's symbolic legacy, the issue allegedly stopped being viewed as a simple household matter and instead became part of a larger institutional conversation about continuity, respect, and emotional legitimacy under Charles's reign. Some insiders even whisper that palace figures began growing increasingly cautious about how future symbolic decisions might be interpreted by Anne, and the traditionalist faction quietly aligned around her perspective. And at the center of all this tension stood King Charles himself, reportedly struggling beneath the emotional weight of competing loyalties, impossible to fully reconcile. According to royal observers, Charles allegedly found himself trapped between his determination to support Camilla and his lifelong reverence for Queen Elizabeth's memory, a balance growing harder to maintain with every new whisper emerging behind palace walls. Because while the monarchy publicly continued projecting calm stability, insiders claim the emotional pressure inside Clarence House had quietly reached dangerous levels, and as pressure mounted behind palace walls, the emotional strain surrounding King Charles reportedly became harder for aides to conceal. For King Charles, according to royal observers, the alleged portrait controversy represented far more than an argument about household presentation. It became a deeply personal collision between two worlds defining his reign: the enduring shadow of Queen Elizabeth II and the controversial realities surrounding Queen Camilla's place within the monarchy. And insiders claim the emotional pressure of balancing those forces reportedly left the king increasingly isolated behind palace walls. What reportedly made the situation so painful for Charles was the impossible emotional position he allegedly found himself trapped within. On one side stood the memory of Queen Elizabeth II, a monarch whose authority, discipline, and symbolic power still dominate the emotional foundation of the institution even after her passing. On the other stood Camilla, the woman Charles spent decades defending against criticism, public hostility, and institutional resistance before finally bringing her fully into the center of royal life. According to insiders, the alleged portrait dispute forced those two emotional realities into direct collision in a way the palace had long tried desperately to avoid. Reports suggest Charles struggled privately with growing tensions involving his mother's legacy and Camilla's expanding authority within Clarence House. Royal commentators claim the king reportedly understood more than anyone how emotionally sensitive symbols tied to Queen Elizabeth remained for staff, traditionalists, and even members of the public still adjusting to life after the end of the Elizabethan era. Yet insiders also insist Charles remained fiercely committed to protecting Camilla from what he allegedly viewed as unfair scrutiny and lingering hostility from sections of the institution still reluctant to fully embrace her role as queen. That balancing act reportedly became more exhausting with every whisper emerging from palace corridors. Sources claim senior advisors quickly became alarmed by the possibility that details surrounding the alleged portrait controversy could eventually leak into wider public discussion. According to palace observers, fears surrounding public backlash intensified almost immediately once internal unease spread through Clarence House. Royal symbolism, insiders reportedly warned, had become extraordinarily delicate during Charles's reign. Every image, every gesture, every ceremonial adjustment now carried amplified emotional significance because the monarchy itself was navigating a period of deep vulnerability shaped by illness, transition, and declining institutional certainty. Commentators believe Charles viewed preserving unity as absolutely essential, even if doing so required maintaining painful silence behind palace walls. According to insiders familiar with the atmosphere surrounding the king, Charles allegedly became increasingly anxious about protecting both Camilla and the institution simultaneously without deepening already fragile internal divisions. That challenge reportedly weighed heavily on him, because the controversy allegedly exposed unresolved tensions the monarchy never fully solved after Queen Elizabeth's death. For decades, the institution operated beneath her immense emotional authority. Now Charles reportedly faced the far more complicated task of establishing his own reign while carrying the emotional baggage attached to Camilla's long and controversial journey into the royal family. Insiders reportedly described growing anxiety among palace figures surrounding public perception of royal symbolism throughout the controversy. According to observers, advisors feared that even a minor symbolic misunderstanding could quickly spiral into a damaging narrative about loyalty, legacy, and institutional respect. That fear reflected what royal experts increasingly describe as a more emotionally fragile phase of monarchy under Charles's reign. The old certainty that once surrounded royal symbolism allegedly no longer exists in the same way. Every decision now unfolds beneath harsher scrutiny, deeper public skepticism, and growing fears about the monarchy's long-term stability in a rapidly changing world. Observers claim the alleged portrait controversy ultimately revealed something far more significant than a disagreement about household decor. It exposed lingering divisions surrounding Camilla's long-term acceptance within certain royal and traditionalist circles, divisions that reportedly remain far more emotionally powerful behind palace walls than the institution publicly acknowledges. Because while Camilla may officially hold the title of Queen, insiders suggest full emotional acceptance inside all corners of royal culture remains far more complicated. And for Charles, that unresolved tension reportedly became one of the defining emotional burdens of his reign. But even as the palace fought to contain the situation internally, the silence surrounding the portrait allegedly became more revealing than any public explanation ever could. In the end, no official statement clarified what truly happened inside Clarence House Hall. No palace spokesperson publicly confirmed the alleged request. And yet, according to royal commentators, the absence of denial only deepened public fascination with the controversy. Because within the monarchy, silence often functions as its own language, carefully controlled, emotionally distant, and heavy with implication. And for many observers, that silence surrounding Queen Elizabeth's portrait spoke volumes. What reportedly intensified the situation even further was the complete lack of visible correction from palace officials once whispers surrounding the alleged portrait removal began circulating through royal circles. According to insiders, no formal clarification ever emerged to calm growing speculation. No carefully worded briefing appeared. No symbolic reassurance was publicly offered regarding Queen Elizabeth's continued place within the emotional heart of Clarence House. And inside the monarchy, where every public silence is measured with extraordinary precision, that absence reportedly became deeply revealing to royal observers already watching Charles's reign with growing anxiety. Royal commentators claim the silence itself intensified speculation surrounding internal royal tensions far more than any direct statement might have. Because within palace culture, insiders reportedly understand that certain stories are denied immediately when the institution believes firm correction is necessary. But when silence remains intact, observers often begin searching for deeper meaning hidden beneath the surface. In this case, according to several royal experts, the refusal to publicly engage with the controversy allegedly fueled suspicions that the emotional divisions surrounding Queen Elizabeth's legacy were more serious than palace officials wished to acknowledge openly. Insiders suggest Queen Elizabeth's symbolic presence remains emotionally untouchable for many longtime traditionalists working within royal structures. Even after the transition to Charles's reign, commentators claim her influence allegedly continues shaping the emotional atmosphere of the monarchy in ways outsiders rarely fully understand. Her leadership style, her discipline, her sense of continuity reportedly became woven directly into the institution itself after 70 years on the throne. And because of that, any perceived disruption connected to her memory allegedly carries emotional consequences far greater than ordinary public controversy. Observers now believe the alleged portrait dispute exposed lingering institutional discomfort surrounding Camilla's place within royal history, despite her official position as queen. According to palace insiders, some traditionalists reportedly still struggle privately with the emotional transition from the Elizabethan era into the reign now unfolding under Charles and Camilla. Public loyalty remains intact, protocol remains disciplined, but beneath that formal stability, insiders whisper that unresolved emotional tensions continue existing quietly within parts of the institution, especially among those who viewed Queen Elizabeth not simply as monarch, but as the irreplaceable guardian of royal continuity itself. Reports claim Clarence House staff became increasingly cautious, discussing the controversy once internal anxiety surrounding the situation intensified. According to observers familiar with royal households, conversations allegedly became more restrained, more guarded, and more emotionally careful after whispers surrounding the portrait spread beyond private staff circles. That reaction alone, commentators suggest, reflected the extraordinary sensitivity attached to symbolism inside the monarchy during periods of transition. Because within royal culture, emotional stability often depends on preserving the illusion that continuity remains untouched, even when enormous internal changes are quietly unfolding behind closed doors. Royal experts increasingly argue the alleged controversy reflected far deeper anxieties surrounding identity, continuity, and institutional legitimacy under Charles's reign. The issue was never truly about a single portrait. It was about what that portrait represented to different factions within the monarchy itself. To some, Queen Elizabeth's image symbolized sacred continuity that should remain emotionally central no matter who now occupies the throne. To others, the monarchy allegedly cannot fully establish a new chapter while remaining permanently trapped beneath the emotional shadow of the previous reign. And somewhere between those competing fears, the palace reportedly chose silence rather than risk exposing divisions it could no longer fully control. Because within the House of Windsor, portraits are never simply portraits, and removing one can sometimes reveal far more than words ever could. Long after the alleged controversy faded from public discussion, insiders claim its emotional impact continued lingering quietly through the corridors of the royal household. Because according to those familiar with palace culture, the real issue was never only about a portrait, it was about memory, legacy, and the invisible struggle over who shapes the monarchy's emotional identity after Queen Elizabeth's passing. Reports suggest Queen Elizabeth's influence still dominates internal royal culture despite the transition to Charles' reign, with many longtime aides allegedly continuing to measure stability, discipline, and leadership against the standards she established over decades on the throne. According to royal observers, her symbolic presence reportedly remains so powerful that even small changes connected to her image or memory can trigger deep emotional reactions inside palace walls. Sources claim some traditionalists continue resisting aspects of Camilla's growing authority, not necessarily through open conflict, but through quiet discomfort rooted in loyalty to the late Queen's era. And within the monarchy, where symbolism carries extraordinary institutional weight, those emotional undercurrents allegedly became impossible to ignore after whispers surrounding the portrait controversy spread through Clarence House. Commentators now believe the situation reflected far broader anxieties surrounding the monarchy's future under Charles, especially during a period shaped by transition, uncertainty, and fears about preserving continuity in a rapidly changing world. Insiders reportedly described lingering emotional divisions among some palace staff even after public attention moved elsewhere, with conversations becoming more cautious whenever issues tied to legacy or symbolism surfaced internally. Analysts claim preserving continuity gradually became one of the defining priorities of Charles's fragile reign, forcing the institution into an increasingly defensive posture where image control and stability often outweighed emotional transparency. Today, Clarence House continues operating beneath the polished calm expected of royal life. Publicly, no fracture is visible, no conflict is acknowledged. Yet according to royal insiders, the alleged portrait controversy exposed something deeply revealing about the monarchy's uncertain future. Because when an institution is built on history, symbolism becomes power, and power inside the House of Windsor has never truly existed without emotional consequence. Observers believe the controversy revealed how fragile royal unity can become during periods of transition, particularly when competing visions of legacy and modernization quietly collide behind palace walls. Royal commentators claim Queen Elizabeth's memory remains the emotional center of the monarchy even after her passing, while insiders suggest Camilla still faces quiet resistance from certain traditional royal circles, struggling to emotionally embrace the new era fully. Reports also suggest palace officials allegedly became far more cautious afterward regarding symbolic decisions tied to royal presentation, aware that even the smallest gesture could ignite deeper institutional anxieties. Because within the monarchy, every image tells a story, every silence carries meaning, and every preserved tradition reflects an invisible battle between the past and the future. And somewhere inside the guarded silence of Clarence House, the echoes of that reported request may still remain a quiet reminder that the monarchy's deepest battles are often fought through symbolism, not speeches. And behind every carefully preserved royal portrait may linger a silent truth the palace never wishes to say aloud, that preserving the crown has always demanded sacrifices far beyond what the public is ever allowed to see. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.